Okay, so the draft may be over, but Howie Roseman is far from being done making moves, as the Eagles added several undrafted free agents to the roster along with multiple invites for rookie minicamp coming up. Meanwhile, the most recent tight end to reset the market certainly impacts Philly's decision with Dallas Goedert. So let's discuss the latest update there, plus why the Birds got the most underrated prospect in the 2025 NFL Draft. Let's talk about it, but first, let's run it. What's up, guys? Apologies for no show Monday, had a scheduling conflict, but finally getting something up now. Yeah, okay, actually, I was traveling back from Alabama thanks to Gary, where I got my first taste of NASCAR. And man, that was such an awesome experience, with it giving a completely new meaning to winning.
If you ain't first, you're last. You know what I'm talking about?
All right, well, in the case of the Eagles, getting first did end up resulting in drafting last in the draft, but they weren't last place when it came to draft grades based on many analysts. In fact, ESPN's Matt Miller went as far to say, "We'll look back on this draft as the spark that continued the Eagles' NFC dominance." Thanks to Howie Roseman's doubling down on defense with exciting picks like linebacker Jihaad Campbell, safety Andrew Mukuba, and defensive tackle Ty Robinson. Which I think it's noteworthy to point out that nearly every draft expert gave the Eagles a B+ or higher on the draft. Now, obviously, time will tell, and you could be saying to yourself, who really cares about what grade they got? Yet when we remember the fact that Howie Roseman has hit on each of his first 3 picks in the last 4 drafts prior to this one, it should give a lot of people hope that he did it again. Now, I've talked a lot about first-round pick Jihaad Campbell and second-round pick Andrew Mukuba in recent videos. However, when it comes to Nebraska's Ty Robinson, there might not be a more underrated pick out there in the entire draft. And don't worry, I'm going to break down exactly why that is here in a second. But for now, do me a favor as always and drop a like on this video, because I'm going to give away one person who likes and comments on this video any rookie jersey from this year's class of your choice in an upcoming live stream. So good luck to you, but first I wanted to get into the latest undrafted free agent signings because Howie's been busy. And shout out to Anthony DeBona for keeping tabs on all these moves, but I got a link in the description for the UDFA tracker and where to follow him on X to stay up to date. Of course, first, he has Rutgers offensive tackle Holland Pierce, who the Eagles not only signed, but several draft analysts, including Lance Zierlein, had a 5th-round grade on him, thanks to his 6'8", yes, you heard me right, 6'8", 340-pound frame, along with ridiculous 36-inch arms. And thanks to that frame, many had him projected as a talent to be at least an above-average backup in the NFL. So considering Philly lost a couple pieces on the O-line and Pierce has experience playing 24 games at right tackle and 26 games at left tackle, you can understand why O-line coach Jeff Stoutland might want him in the building. Granted, you're right, the Birds did draft some other monsters in the trenches like Michigan's Myles Hinton and Texas's Cameron Williams, which I covered more in my previous video. So Pierce is still going to have an uphill battle to even make the roster. Now the next on Anthony's list in terms of projected value is Toledo safety Maxon Hook. And at 6 foot 200 pounds with a 4.5 40 and 35-inch vertical, the team captain recorded 107 tackles in his final season, and is another guy that Lance Zierlein projected as a 5th-round selection. So, for the Eagles to get a guy like that without having to spend a draft pick feels like a considerable value pickup. Heck, at the very least, you could see this dude working out on special teams, since one AFC national scout weighed in saying this dude is big and fast and he's going to be a stud on special teams. Plus, it certainly doesn't hurt that his best friend is Quinyon Mitchell since they played together at Toledo. Now, I'll admit, moving on to the next position, I thought Philadelphia was going to add another running back via the draft, with my top realistic option being Texas running back Jaden Blue.
You're my boy, Blue! You're my boy.
Obviously, that didn't happen, and I'm still trying to get over it. Makes it that much worse. The Dallas Cowboys got Jaden Blue, but we're going to be fine. The Eagles did end up eventually adding to the running back room via the UDFAs, Florida's Montrell Johnson, as well as Central Arkansas's Shunderick Powell. And remember, Powell is the one I briefly mentioned before, but at 5'8", 183, the dude has a 495-pound split squat. So yeah, don't let the size fool you. He is one of the most explosive backs in the country, where he averaged 8.2 yards per carry last season. Now you're right, the competition wasn't near what it's like playing in Power 5, but those numbers were at least worthy of a further look in camp. On the other hand, Montrell Johnson did have to deal with that upper echelon competition and would provide more of that size and power, with Anthony describing him as a violent runner and someone whose best ability is as a downhill back. Although never a bad thing to get multiple draft analysts to offer an NFL comparison of Tank Bigsby for a guy who's just trying to make an NFL roster. And then when it comes to the defensive side, Philly signed Texas A&M cornerback BJ Mays, who primarily played in the slot with the Aggies last year, but does have versatility of both inside and outside from his career. Also, just in case you were wondering, last season he gave up 19 catches on 35 targets for 224 yards and 2 touchdowns. However, he did register 4 interceptions in the meantime. Again, I don't know if Mays makes the roster here, seeing the Eagles, the competition they already have, the cornerbacks in the room, but I at least like his competitiveness. I mean, if you watch him on tape, he certainly has that, so at least bring in some competition there. Not a bad move. And honestly, I'd say the same thing for Oregon safety Brandon Johnson and Toledo linebacker Lance Dixon, who were also recently signed. By the way, you're right that Brandon Johnson primarily played slot cornerback in college, but like Anthony pointed out, the Birds reported him as a safety, so it appears they're going to look at trying him out there. Anyway, the final two guys to mention are at wide receiver, and that's Wake Forest's Taylor Morin as well as Tarleton State's Darius Cooper. Now, Morin didn't just wow anyone as a wideout at Wake Forest, hauling in 64 receptions for 756 yards and 2 touchdowns. Although when it comes to punt return, he could make a push to steal a roster spot there, thanks to his 17 yards per return last year. Granted, there's also Darius Cooper, who I mentioned, and even with his lesser competition last season, it wouldn't be crazy to think he can steal a roster spot. Because we're talking about a dude who's 5'11", 213 pounds, and had one of the better contested catch rates in the class, while running a 4.49 with a 38-inch vertical and 10-foot 6-inch broad jump, which, naturally attributed to his 76 catches, 1,450 yards, and 14 touchdowns last season. I mean, as a bigger, more physical slot receiver, he wouldn't be the worst candidate, at least for a backup or just another potential option there, although I will say when it comes to his route running, that's the biggest area of concern, kind of lesser competition, didn't really have to rely on it, but Aaron Moorhead, wide receiver coach, get him in the building, you never know. After all, put him with some of the best route runners in the league, and who knows where his trajectory goes. Look, I said it before the draft, but it did feel like wide receiver and maybe more importantly tight end were positions the Eagles would go in the draft, even if it was like towards the very end. Of course, they didn't, but between the UDFAs and rookie minicamp invites, they're definitely doing their homework. FYI, in case you hadn't heard who received additional invites to Philly's rookie minicamp, that would be Delaware Valley wide receiver Nashir Morgan Sr., South Carolina wide receiver Amarian Brown, Sam Houston wide receiver Ife Adeyi, BYU receiver Darius Lassiter, Houston tight end Malik Carr, Minnesota offensive lineman Quinn Carroll, Tennessee offensive lineman Andre Karich, UCLA linebacker Joseph Vaughn, Illinois linebacker Ryan Mead, North Texas cornerback Ridge Jihaad, Campbell cornerback Isaiah Green, Texas A&M safety Trey Jones III, Indiana safety Nick Toomer, and South Carolina punter Kai Kroger. By the way, notice again, the Eagles chose to not only not draft a tight end, but they're only bringing in one tight end via rookie minicamp invite, which I personally took as a positive sign for Dallas Goedert. However, with no guaranteed money for DG, and then seeing the San Francisco 49ers make George Kittle the highest paid tight end along with $40 million in guaranteed money, it's understandable that we've had multiple reporters saying it wouldn't be all that crazy to think Goddard's unhappy with Howie and his current contract situation.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point. Hey, I don't know why I'm talking to you. Do you remember that I hate you?
Look, I want Goddard to stay, but Kittle just got $76 million for 4 years and is 1 year older than Goddard. I don't know, maybe Dallas is willing to take a team-friendly discount, but the likelihood of an extension probably just took a pretty big hit. Either way, once the Birds have to report for mandatory OTAs, I think we'll get a better idea of where the two sides are at if we haven't heard anything by then. Granted, before we get there, we do have a couple different dates to take into account first. For one, in case you weren't aware, NFL teams are now able to sign free agents that don't count or won't count towards the compensatory pick formula, so aka Justin Simmons is still available. Although after drafting Mukuba and the other UDFA signings, I do wonder if Vic Fangio even thinks they need to bring him in. Now, the other date to keep in mind is that Philly has until May 1st to exercise the fifth-year option for Jordan Davis, otherwise he'll be destined for free agency at the end of the season. Which, by the way, the day after that is when the Eagles' rookie minicamp will be starting, as Anthony broke the news this year that the Birds' rookie minicamp will be May 2nd through May 5th. And call me crazy because I know they're just going through mainly drills, but I get so hyped to see the rookies wearing the midnight green for the first time. After all, there's a lot of guys with promising futures in Philly, but Nebraska's Ty Robinson is severely underrated. I mean, come on, I don't know if you realize this, but if Dallas Goedert ends up getting traded, Robinson could legit be the answer to continuing the tush-push or short-yardage success. For real, the Cornhuskers used Robinson as a fullback 8 times on short-yardage situations, with them scoring touchdowns on 7 of those plays. Like, I'm sorry, Robinson is just a football player with some insane versatility. Sure, technically he's listed as a defensive tackle, but last year at Nebraska, the 24-year-old lined up in the A-gap, the B-gap, over the tackle, and even outside the tackle. Now, it's probably not a surprise, but the fact that Ty was the fastest defensive tackle at the Combine with the 18th best athletic grading ever for that position, along with an insane ankle flexibility, certainly played a huge part. So again, let's not make the mistake of overlooking just how versatile this dude is and how much he can help to replace the loss of Milton Williams.
Me and Cam was a year older than me when I came in, and so I got to kind of see him grow up and learn the position at center. So we got to battle against each other each and every day. So we were pretty close. And then, when he's been back here for a little bit, just doing some workouts, staying, doing off-season stuff. And I just kept kind of joking with him. I said, make sure you put in a good word for me when you go back. And he's like, oh, trust me, I am. So, yeah, no, me and him, I'm super excited to be back and playing with him and going against him every day.
In those workouts with Cam Jurgens and everything. I mean, did he tell you at all about like the Eagles defensive tackle room with like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis? And how do you feel like, being on the same team as those guys?
Yeah, I mean, he's told me, some stories of what it's like to be at practice with them. Obviously, watching the Super Bowl just to see how dominant they were in the game. I mean, you saw how they just basically took over the game and controlled it. And so I'm excited to get in the room and meet the guys, and obviously, earn the respect of them, and try to see how I fit in with them.
And Ty Robinson kind of reminds you of Milton Williams, big and powerful, and splits that double team. And gets to the quarterback. I mean, that's his move. Like, he's all about power. But here he is on top of the nose. He can play anywhere. He can play the zero technique right here. So what I love about him, though, is he plays the game with violence. Real violence, the way the game's supposed to be played. You get the running back, take his head off. Plant him into the turf. Make him feel your punch. All right, you watch him right here. Here he is on the inside four-eye. All right, 3 technique, inside four-eye. UCLA is going to try to double him. All right, guard is going to slide over there with him. And the center. Watch them split it. Taking down the quarterback. Now, the lifeblood of any defensive lineman in any system at any level. Retrace your steps, find the ball, get to the ball. Good things happen when you do. 6'6", 290, runs in the 4.8s. I remember seeing him at the combine. Matt Rule coached him. Matt Rule went to the combine Indy to support him. Like, that's it. Ty Robinson. It's a good pick in the 4th round. I think they got themselves a real player.
I'm telling you, Robinson can play just about any sort of alignment you want, from nose tackle to wide 9, and heck, with Fangio, we know that's going to be some really creative uses. And I mean, why not when you've got a vanilla gorilla like the 3rd-team All-Big Ten standout? By the way, that's legit Ty's nickname. No, I did not just make that up on the fly. So forget all these one gorilla versus 100 men arguments or debates. My question is, how many O-linemen does it take to stop the vanilla gorilla? Sorry, but the rest of the league might realize they made a huge mistake to pass up on a fully grown vanilla gorilla.
Yeah, listen. We f***ed up.
Okay, I know this doesn't have anything to do with football, but I personally get a kick out of him having a pet camel. And continuing on with the most interesting rookie in the NFL, Robinson was actually pre-med at Nebraska and wants to go into pediatrics when football is finished. However, I'll just say this, do not let the calm and friendly demeanor fool you, because Dave Zangaro even shared that when he steps in on the gridiron, he has an absolute mean streak. Thanks to former NFL lineman and Robinson's D-line coach at Nebraska, Terrence Knighton, saying don't take his kindness for weakness. Now sure, off the field, he's a really nice guy, you'd let him date your daughter, but when he crosses those white lines, he turns into a maniac, or I guess better yet, a vanilla gorilla. With Knighton sharing, he knows how to flip the switch, and that if he were in a dark alley and got into a fight, he's taking Ty Robinson with him. Alright, I was sold before. Yet again, the more that I learn about this dude, this guy's going to make an impact, and he's going to make it quick. Oh, one more thing on Knighton. So Zangaro asked him which flip the switch guys who can turn on the mean streak did Robinson remind him of, and Knighton answered with DeMarcus Ware, saying great guy off the field, but a psycho on it. Although, believe it or not, if push came to shove, Knighton actually admitted that Ty probably has a little bit more of an edge than DeMarcus Ware, saying he's a badass. He's going to fit right in with Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, and the rest of them dudes. They're going to love him. Yeah, if you didn't know before, it's easy to see why Howie Roseman felt the way he did about Robinson right after the pick.
It doesn't take long to put on the tape to like Ty Robinson. He's got quickness. He can work edges. He's strong with his hands. He's got great elite character. He's a Philly kind of player. So, again, he was a guy that we really were targeting yesterday at 96. Woke up and was really hoping that he was there at our pick, and that was one we weren't considering trading back from.
Reminder, the Rook had a 16% pressure rate as a 0 or 1 technique, and his win rate was over 10% no matter where he lined up on the defensive line. That's the reason for his 7 sacks, 13 tackles for loss, and 11 quarterback hits to lead all defensive tackles in college football. I'm just saying, 6'5", 290 with a nastiness and physicality that is almost unparalleled. I don't know about you, but Robinson really reminds me of Miami Dolphins defensive tackle Zach Sieler. Remember, Sieler was a 7th-round pick by the Baltimore Ravens in the 2018 NFL Draft and ran the exact same 40 time as Robinson. Of course, Sieler came from Ferris State, so didn't quite have the same level of competition. But after 4 to 5 years of struggling to break through, Sieler posted a career-best 10 sacks in 2023, and guess who was coaching him? Yep, Vic Fangio, where then he managed to reach that total again this past season. Now, obviously, we're not trying to wait 4 to 5 years before production starts to hit. Yet based on the strides from other defensive linemen and the pairing of Vic Fangio and D-line coach Clint Hurt, it ain't just hype to say the sky is the limit. Or let me rephrase, I don't think it's just hype and do expect this guy to be one of the biggest steals in the draft, but how about you though? Who would you compare him to? Player comps? How you feeling? What do you think he turns into? Let me know in the comments. All right, hit that like button on your way out. I'll catch you guys in the live stream. Until next time, this has been the Philly Special.